Know so many dudes that are like, I want a traditional marriage. My wife should be submissive to me. What is she submitting to? Poverty? These dudes have no house, no car, no savings, but expect their partners to do all the cooking, the cleaning, the child rearing, because that's how it went in the 1950s. Okay. You know what else happened in the 1950s? Men were supporting entire families on one salary. Yeah. And listen, I'm not trying to shame modern day men. The cost of living,
Isn't it crazy how men built the world for us and then we shit on them as a thank you? None of us are virgins anymore. Men value purity and youth, right? Modesty. And they're not getting that anymore. So do you think it's a fair deal for men when they're not getting that to be monogamous to us, to comprise on their mating strategy when we don't fulfill theirs because we're not virgins anymore? And like the truth is, modern women are less pure than they've.
I always say that today's world is so different from what it used to be, especially in terms of social dynamics and the female-male relationship. Sure, time had its problems, but the dynamics weren't as crazy as they are now. There's a reason why men have stopped approaching women. Nowadays, you don't see it happening as much as it did in the 1950s and before. If you liked a girl, you had to muster the courage to approach her and get to know her because there was no cell phone, internet, social media, or anything else. You had to physically approach a woman or go to her father, and these women mostly lived with you in your town. Women didn't have unlimited options back then. She only had the guys in her community to choose from. It was a simpler time back then. More men would approach women at this time because there was no guarantee he'd ever see her again, and he didn't want to miss out on a woman he liked. But then the dynamics shifted and men stopped approaching women entirely. The problem is that there is not a lot of risk involved. We must consider the consequences of that decision in the same way that most men must decide before marriage whether they stand to gain anything or not, because most marriages appear to end in divorce these days. The same is true for approaching. Women have made it so risky and unrewarding that it is no longer worth it. There are numerous other things for men to be afraid of, such as being rejected and humiliated by a woman, being mocked, or being labeled a creep. In a society where the average male is considered a rapist and women don't bat an eyelash before labeling a man a predator and a harasser, the average man has no choice but to refrain from approaching. Talking to women nowadays has aesthetic criteria. It depends on how good you look. If an average-looking guy approaches her and talks to her, without being disrespectful or creepy, she will make a fool of the guy. She'll most likely use him for drinks, and then spin the narrative to call him a creep, which she'll then parade around on social media for laughs and attention. I want you to consider status and how perceived value influences how people treat others. Consider the times you were approached by a homeless person who appeared dirty, and you immediately became defensive. The same is true for women, who judge you based on how you appear from the start. Previously, women did not have this extended security to make decisions and choose the group of men with whom they affiliate themselves. Now, women are always surrounded by white knights ready to do her bidding, and she is safe to publicly humiliate a man. It is safe to assume that modern women no longer respect the average man. Do you think she would do the same to Jeff Bezos, a billionaire with exceptional authority and status? As you can see, it all comes down to a man's status, and women would never dare to talk down or humiliate a man who was clearly better than she could ever be. Many people have had wives and girlfriends like that, who were only interested in climbing the social ladder and had no loyalty. If you want to learn everything there is to know about women, consider a woman being approached by her boss versus her janitor. Which one do you think has a better chance of not being disrespected? Women don't care about the average man. Most men today have realized this and have decided not to talk to women at all. That's why dating rates are plummeting. Men are realizing that every time they approach a woman, they're in for a bad experience. It's a no-win situation in which they risk their reputation and possibly their freedom. When men have the police called on them simply for saying hello to a woman, they begin to wonder why they would ever approach a woman. The art of being polite and appearing pleasant is a lost art among modern women. Most of them walk around with a resting dish face, which scares men away or turns them off. Men have been told all sorts of derogatory things, such as "you're too short," "you're too broke," and men are simply sick and tired of this piece. I'd like to know your thoughts on this, as well as how long you've been Mgtow. Don't forget to hit the like button to help spread the word about this video. Thank you for taking your daily dose of red pills, and remember that a red pill a day keeps bad poker hands away. So have a good rest of your day and cheers.